Hello everybody and welcome to WASD 20 today for mini painting part 3. This is going to be laying down the actual paint. We're going to be doing a base coat and also a wash on this miniature, and I'm really excited to finally be painting the thing. Remember in our first video we prepped the miniature for paint. We did priming and some other steps to get it ready for paint. In the second video, we kind of took a break from the actual figure here and we talked about paint and brushes and how to select paint and brushes and different kinds you can use, and I just shared some of my thoughts. Today we're going to be using two of the ones I showed before. We're going to be using a Maroon Beige from Vallejo Model Color and a Battlefield Brown from Privateer Press, the Formula P3 paint. And yeah, we're going to be laying down a base coat on the majority of this thing's skin with a little mix of that, mostly the Maroon Beige with just a little touch of Battlefield Brown to darken it up. So here we go. I am starting from the inside out and I'm picking a surface. Here I'm going to be just kind of blocking in the major colors and not doing a lot of the detail, just kind of blocking in the major colors. I would say there's probably going to be, I don't know, 6 or 7 main colors here, and then obviously we'll be doing highlights and some little details on some of the little bits and bobbles, but for the most part I'm going to be sticking to just a few main colors. And I'm starting from the inside out with this. I am painting the lower surfaces first. Notice that his loincloth is over his skin, so I paint the skin first, or you know, the leather straps of his armor. I'm not going to be painting those first. I will be starting inside and moving to the further out surfaces after that. You'll also notice that this mix of paint I have is very, very thin. It hardly even covers the black in some parts. The black still very much shows through, and that's intentional. I want some of that black to show through as kind of a dark base, and also you want your paint to be nice and thin so that you get a good, even, smooth coat. So I thinned it out with a lot of water, and really for some paints this might be 2 parts water to 1 part paint. It depends on the type of paint you're using, but you can see the thin consistency I'm using here, and I'm perfectly fine with that. Sure, maybe I could have made it a little thicker, it depends on your preference, but I really want to keep it thin, and I can always just do more coats. It's much better to do several thin coats of paint than it is to do a thick coat. A thick coat of paint can really muddy the details and you lose some of the great details of a miniature like this. Now I should say that I'm not incredibly experienced with painting miniatures. I've probably painted about, well, I don't know, less than 20 miniatures I would guess ever. And I'm still learning a lot, so hopefully I have some good things to share with you that, you know, people can still learn from, even though I'm fairly new to the hobby. And I definitely recommend checking out other channels too. One of my favorites is Dr. Faust's Painting Clinic. He's just awesome. I love his stuff. I watch almost all his videos. If it's anything like a D&D miniature or Warhammer miniature, I'm all over it. I just love watching him paint. I learn a lot. So yeah, I think it's important to be reflective, and I'll kind of mention some things. You know, this is the first miniature I've painted in about 6 months, so I'll mention some things that, ooh, this could have gone better, and I'll be reflective, and hopefully you can learn from some of my mistakes here too. I try to be pretty aware of my weaknesses, and one thing I know that I'm not very good at is, with my brush, keeping the paint out of the ferrule of the brush. That's the metal part where the bristles go into. It's a good idea to try to keep the paint just more on the tip, because when you get paint in the ferrule, it actually it wears on it and it's harder to get out of there, and it deteriorates your brush a little bit faster. But hopefully I can get better at that. So at this point I'm still going about the task of getting that first coat on all the main flesh areas and getting that light brown in there. I am going to be doing his back and his mane a different color. And I think there's hair on his legs too. Yep, that'll be a different color. It'll be a darker brown that I'm going for there. And that'll be challenging because there's going to be a lot of brown on this thing. There's the light brown skin tone, then there's the darker brown fur, and then there's going to be kind of a reddish brown leather, and there's some brown wood that I'm not sure how I'm going to handle yet. So We've got lots of different shades of brown, and that is going to make it challenging just to get some good contrast and try to really differentiate between these different materials and surfaces. But I'm going to be starting the second coat in a minute here on the main flesh tone. And that's going to brighten it up quite a bit. You're going to see a lot less of the black showing through. And sometimes for this, I probably could have done 3 coats really to get excellent coverage, but I maybe got impatient and moved on. Either way, I think it turns out okay in the end. But you can see this is brightening it up quite a bit, this second coat on the main flesh tones. Pretty soon here, I am going to be skipping ahead. So you're going to see all of a sudden I have a lot more done, and I'm just continuing to block in those main surfaces, though. Again, it's the same process, just different colors on different surfaces. So coming up right here, you have it, a lot more done. Sorry for the shaky camera there, but you can see that now I have his shoulder pauldron, his club, his shield, and I've got that darker brown on his on the fur parts. So yeah, I used pretty much just the battlefield brown on the darker fur. I think I mixed a little bit of gray in actually. And then on his shoulder pauldron I used gunmetal gray, and on his spiked club I used gunmetal gray and black. And on his shield I think I used natural steel, and those are all Vallejo colors. So yep, that worked okay. The shoulder pauldron is a little brighter than I had hoped, so I'm going to try to probably darken that up here. But you can see that now I'm going to start doing his shield wood, and I'm doing this with, I think it was just a battlefield brown, just plain old battlefield brown, the P3 paint. And I'm disobeying my own rule by going outside in here to the outside metal first, and now going inside of the wood, but oh well, we'll survive. It doesn't always work out. And again, just continuing to block in the main colors here. And at this point I am going on to the leather now, and for the leather parts I am using dark flesh tone, which is a Vallejo game color dark flesh tone, so good for doing dark skin obviously, but I'm using it for the leather because it does kind of have a nice reddish hue that I like for the leather on this guy. Again, just trying to differentiate between different types of browns here. We'll see how successful that is in the end, and if I can keep that differentiation going. But either way, it'll be a valuable learning experience. Hooray! So I once again skipped ahead here, and going to be showing you some more that I've done. For example, I kind of blocked in the main color for his loincloth, and made of that a blue. And I'm now going to be doing a little dry brushing, so you can see me trying to wipe off most of the paint, and really I don't think I did quite enough, but I'm doing some dry brushing on his fur, trying to bring out the highlights. So for the process of dry brushing, you can see my part 1 where I did it on the in the prep process, which I sometimes like to do to bring out the details. But in this one, again, I just load up the brush and then I rub it on a paper towel quite a bit and just kind of jam it in there. You want to use a crappy brush that's kind of got a good surface area to it, and then I'm rubbing it over some of the areas, and it just picks up the raised areas and gives it a nice little highlight on those areas. I'm not quite 100% pleased with how it turned out. I'm not sure what I'm doing in terms of the highlights with the color choice here. Again, wanting to keep the browns differentiated, but we'll see how it goes. Alright, I'm not doing a very good job of showing you here, but I am going to be doing the highlights on the main flesh tone now. And for this I am using Maroon Beige, and I think it's just straight up Maroon Beige now. No more brown mixed in, or Battlefield Brown mixed in. And so again, I'm wanting to keep my paint very thin. And now I'm just going to be hitting those raised surfaces. So you got to think about what areas would be less in the shadows and what areas are standing out more and raised more. And those are the areas I'm going to want to be hitting with a little bit of this highlight. So this is the first highlight. So it's going to be covering most of the surface of this main skin tone. I would say probably 75% of it is what I'm covering here with this highlight color. And this is my preferred way of doing highlights and shadows, is starting dark and going up light. I know that some people will go fairly light and then they will lay in shadows in the crevices and stuff, and that can work too, but this is the way I've learned from Dr. Faust Painting Clinic that I generally use, and I really like it. So you can see it's already starting to get more depth as we're doing this here. And there's quite a bit of contrast. Some people like less, some people like more. You can see, you know, when you get very high contrast, it often can kind of make it look a little more cartoony, and it can look really, really cool, actually. Some of my favorite miniature paint jobs are super high contrast, and I'm not very good at it the way they are, making it look good. But you can be very subtle with it too, and then just kind of very gradually work your way up through, like, I don't know, 7 different shades of one color. I usually try to do 3, maybe 4, where I do, you know, dark base, maybe 2 or 3 coats of that, and then I do my main highlight, which is again covering 75-80% of the miniature's surface, and then slowly work my way up to another shade higher with a little less coverage, and then keep on going, maybe 1 more, where you're just hitting the very tips of things with a much brighter color. If you are going to be using a wash, it also doesn't hurt to really over highlight a little bit, and you kind of learn that as you go, but I know I'm going to be using a wash, so I'm getting this pretty bright, knowing that it is going to be muted quite a bit after I put the wash on. One thing I wanted to note while I'm working on the highlights for the skin tone is that I also actually did do a base coat and highlights on his loincloth. His blue loincloth there was Nightmare Black mixed with a little bit of a Lightock blue. I might be saying that wrong, but that's a Citadel paint, and the Nightmare Black is actually an MSP paint. And then I did 1 shade up from that with just a tiny bit of Nightmare Black with the Lightock blue as the main color there for the highlights. And I probably will do 1 more coat of highlights or 1 more shade up on the loincloth at a later point. But I'm not hitting any of the highest highlights yet in this step. That will be in the next video. And I'm actually going to shut up for about 1.5 minutes here and just let you watch me paint. Alright, you can see that I have been putting a second coat of my highlights on there. I'm not using a brighter shade or anything like that, if I remember correctly. I'm still just using the straight up Maroon Beige, but I am covering a slightly smaller surface for my second coat. I'm just trying to really cover up more of the underlying color and just brighten it up a little more and make sure that my highlight has good coverage. Alright, now the next step in my process is going to be applying a wash. The guy's looking pretty good so far. I'm pretty happy with how he's coming along. I also should point out I did the bandage around his knee in sort of a beige color. But here's my wash. This is Agrax Earthshade. Sorry it's so out of focus there, but it is a Citadel wash. All the washes I have are Citadel. They actually call them shades now. Some brands will call it like a glaze, or I guess a glaze is a little bit different, but sometimes they'll call it an ink, and they're all pretty much trying to achieve the same thing, which is darkening some of the recesses. And so you can see I'm applying this pretty liberally. I have watered it down. In hindsight, maybe I didn't water it down enough, but I've watered it down a little bit, and just like I thin my paints, I thin my washes usually, because you don't want it getting too dark and hazy, I guess. And you could argue I probably put this on a little too thickly, but you want it pretty thick, and you can always go up and kind of mop it up later as it's drying. So yeah, I'm applying this Agrax Earthshade as a brown wash, and I'm applying it to pretty much all the brown areas. Once again, this is just a really great tip, something that comes in handy for achieving some natural shadows. It's a really good cheat. Now, I mentioned this before, I think. I didn't really capitalize on the cheat in this one. I should have maybe done all my base coats a little bit lighter, and then just gone straight into the wash and let it work that shortcut for me, that shortcut magic that a wash can do. But I'm continuing along here. Now for washes, I have 4. I would say the most important ones would probably be a brown and a black. For my black, I have a Citadel Nuln Oil shade. And the other ones that I do have that are a little less frequently used, we'll say, is a Reichland Flesh shade, which is really great for light skin tones. A good wash, it kind of makes the light skin tones sort of orangish, brownish. And then I've also got a Coelia green shade, which I rarely use. So that's a green wash that can also work pretty well with blues, depending on the shade. But now I'm applying it to the leather parts, and I really liked what it's doing with the leather here. It kind of just gives it a little bit of variety to the tone of the leather, and the wash is generally going to go away from the flat surfaces and kind of collect around the raised surfaces or crevices. And so that's something that's really nice about a wash, is it just kind of naturally does that because of its consistency. You can make your own washes. I've heard of people doing that with just paint and water, just watering down their paint significantly. I've had some trouble with that. It tends to kind of look a little bit like cracked maybe, or just kind of hazy. I've also heard of people adding like a little bit of like a drop of dish soap to paint and water, just to give it that surface tension, or is it lack of surface tension? I can't remember. Anyway, yeah, science, not my thing. But I've heard of people making their own washes, and it's totally possible to do that. Just Google it. I'm sure you can find some good tutorials out there on how to do it. For me, they were cheap enough, at $4 or $5 for a bottle, and they're frequently used enough, and I don't see myself having to buy any new ones anytime soon. That for me, it was worth buying them. It's a little bit debatable when the wash is appropriate. Some people will do it right after their base coat. Some people will do it right after base coat and then highlights, or base coat and 2 levels of highlights. It totally depends on personal preference. But I usually do it right after the base coat, or right after base coat and 1 level of highlight. And this one's a nice easy one because there's a lot of brown, so I am making use of that, and I am covering a lot of this miniature just with my Agrax Earth Shade. And I may have put the wash on a little too thick here, and it may have darkened it a little too much, but the nice thing again is it's always possible to go back and re-highlight things and really draw out the colors that you want. The other thing worth noting is that you can actually use a brown wash on metal too. It can give the metal kind of a dirty look, which sometimes, especially maybe for a monstrous creature, would be desirable. Another thing I'll say is that it is nice to usually go back and kind of mop up some of the excess wash, especially where you see it pulling and pooling, and I probably didn't do quite enough of that here. I can see there are some areas that are pretty thick that I probably should have wiped my brush off and then gone back and wiped again with my brush. Alright everybody, that's where we are going to finish this one up. It's been a lot of fun, and I'm excited for the next one, in which I will be doing the higher highlights and a lot of the detailed work and just finishing this thing up. So yeah, look forward to that coming in about a week. Alright, well at this point I've got the video in slow-mo because I'm really just trying to get every second I can to say everything I need to say, but I just want to thank you so much for joining me for this one. If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up. That helps me out. If you're not subscribed, I'd love it if you subscribed. I have new videos every Wednesday, and I'd love to have you as a subscriber. If you have any comments, questions, leave them down below. If you're an experienced painter, I'd love to hear from you. What do you think? How am I doing? Any suggestions? If you're a newbie, ask away. Anything. Alright, everybody take care. Thanks again, and you'll see me again very soon.